has just arrived in China. And what's the very first thing he said to kick off his state visit as he landed in Beijing? It was Brazil, where Bolsonaro was the president there. But something happened to him, and now he's not in office anymore. And Lula was plucked out of prison. Remember, he was in prison for corruption. They brought him out. The communists on the Supreme Court made him the president again. And now all of a sudden, Lula is in China. And what's the very first thing he says? From the Financial Times of London, front page. Brazil's Lula calls for an end to the U.S. dollar trade dominance. The leftist president is now lending his voice to Beijing's efforts to boost the renminbi's role. That's the Chinese yuan, also known as the renminbi. Renminbi translates to the people's money. Their role in global commerce. President Lula has called on developing countries to work towards replacing the U.S. dollar with their own currencies in international trade. This is called the de-dollarization strategy. The dragon is striking. Now, 20 years ago, this was a pipe dream. This was not something that was possible just because of U.S. standing in the world. But you see, now they're going to walk forward because there wasn't a big enough economic player out there in the world that stood against the U.S. U.S. was top dog. But somehow there became a big player that stood against the U.S., that stood against the U.S. dollar. And how did they get there? Oh, that's right. Because our elites transferred all of our wealth to Shanghai, Shenzhen, Wuhan, Beijing, Guangzhou, the Three Gorges Dam, all the mega projects of China, all the Chinese cities. Why do you think they look like that? And what do we get in return? We get New York City with 120-year-old subways. We get Detroit looking the way it does. We get Chicago where everybody's catching stray bullets. We get Washington, D.C. where there's mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Our cities are crumbling. Our infrastructure is crumbling. And meanwhile, China's on the rise. Why? Because our elites did this. And now, what's China doing? They've turned around, and I keep saying this, they don't want to be junior partner anymore. They realize that we thought we were playing them, they were playing us. That's how stupid our elites are. Our elites thought that nothing could ever happen, that the game would never change. They would go on and they would be the slave labor of China forever, and the CCP would be a willing partner. Well, guess what? This is what happens when you trust communists. This is what happens when you take communists at their word. And Lula's a communist too. Here you go. Here's the speech that Lula gave in Shanghai. Every night I ask myself why all countries have to base their trade on the U.S. dollar. Lula said in a speech at the New Development Bank of Shanghai, also known as the Brics Bank. Why can't we do trade based on our own currencies? Drawing loud applause from the audience of Brazilian and Chinese dignitaries. Who was it? I mean, you listen to this speech. Who was it that decided that the dollar was the currency after the disappearance of the gold standard? They're over there yucking it up. And guess what? Our elites don't care. They've already got their money. This is going to come down on the little people. This is going to come down on the little guy. Do you mean to tell me for a second you don't think this was China's plan? When you hear BRICS, think CCP. When you hear BRICS, think China. They are synonymous. This is the China-led economic dominance. And they're winning. I'm just going to say right now, BRICS is winning. China's winning. They're absolutely winning. They're winning so much they're running the table. They're actually running the table because they've got Russia in a position where Russia's totally locked in with Ukraine. Russia doesn't have economic deals or trade anywhere outside of BRICS. So they're locked into BRICS. You get it? Nord Stream, that's sitting at the bottom of the Baltic. That leverage, gone. Any economic direct ties that they have with Europe, gone. The only way they can get any economic access back to Europe is through who? Through China. You get it? The house always wins. If you build the house, you can't lose because everybody, when they come to play, they got to come to your house. That's what China's done.